Are we on? Are we on?
Yep.
Hello, my name is Austin Fisher, and I'll be reading my fractured fairy tale, Yodastillskin. Once upon a time, there lived an old farmer who was not rich indeed. To impress the king, he admitted a very costly lie. He said his daughter could make gold from potatoes. It was not a total lie, but more like stretching the truth. After the king heard this, he screamed with excitement. He then demanded the daughter be brought in to manually create pounds upon pounds of gold. Against her will, she was dragged, kicking and screaming, to the castle, and then was summoned into a room that contained hundreds of potatoes. You have to be kidding me, she said in a very sarcastic tone. Her name was Tiffany. She was a very bratty girl that loved to talk dirt about other girls behind their backs. One thing that she did that drove all of the other girls crazy was to make fun of all their features, when she herself had very few features to be proud of. She was a Florida gal who was especially good at making French fries. Her dad called them golden French fries. And this is how the whole gold idea came about with the king. Anyways, back to the story. Tiffany had been locked into a room filled with potatoes, and she remembered the king's last words before he slammed and padlocked the heavy door. "You will turn all of these potatoes into gold, or you shall die." Tiffany was frightened, and just as she gave up all hope, a small green thing walked into the room, with a cane and a tan cloak on. The weird thing spoke English, but not in a way she had ever heard before. "Help, I see you need," were the first words he mumbled to her. "Give to me something first. You need to. You can have my watch," she replied. He agreed, and she slipped it off her wrist and handed it to him. He quickly got to work and created gold out of the potatoes. By morning light, the whole room had been filled with shining gold. King was very surprised, but extremely pleased. Tiffany was happy that her job was over. But right then, the king grabs her by the wrist and drags her into an even larger room, filled to capacity with potatoes, and says, "You have till daybreak to turn all of these potatoes into gold." He then slammed the door and locked it once more. Meanwhile, all of the villagers were furious with the sudden increased prices of potatoes. Tiffany lay in a pile of potatoes, bawling her eyes out, when suddenly the small green thing walked back into the room and said, "Help you I can, but give to me something first you will." "I have nothing to give you," she cried. "Then your firstborn baby you will give me." Tiffany was in panic, so she quickly agreed. A small green man busily started making gold from the piles of potatoes. Daybreak came and the whole room was sparkling with gold. The king arrived to the room, still in his PJs, wearing his bunny slippers too, looking more tired than ever. But when he saw the room full of gold, he became more excited than a fat woman who had just won a cake eating contest. The king grabbed Tiffany by the waist and exclaimed, "There shall be a wedding today!" Yes! The king and Tiffany had a magnificent wedding and had lived together very happily and wealthy for several years, when suddenly Tiffany squeezed out a baby. She lay in her bed alone with nobody but her newborn child, and out of the air vent fell a very small green thing. He stood up and demanded the baby be given to him. Tiffany screamed and wailed at him. And not surprisingly, nearby guards heard her screams and were on their way to the room. The green thing then spoke these three words. They spoke these words. 3 days give you I will. Guess my name you do. Keep your baby you shall. Just as he was about to walk out of the room, the door burst open, and a tall man with a thin, white, slick-back hair walked in. His name was Count Dooku, but most just called him Dookie, or Duke. "Hello, Master Yoda," Dookie exclaimed. 7, 8, 9, while she sells seashore with a burning baby full of houses." "Master Yoda, what you just said made absolutely..." And before he could finish, Yoda pulled out a shiny sword and stabbed Dookie through the spleen. Dookie fell down dead as a doornail. Tiffany watched in awe. Her longtime friend fell dead to the floor. Yoda yelled, "Great pancakes Aunt Jemima makes!" Then grabbed the baby and ran for the door. Before she reached it, she was met by an unstoppable force, an unspeakable evil, an immovable object, a true nemesis, Darth Hallsballs. With a flick of her wrist, Yoda was flung through the air and hit the wall with enough force to kill 16 platypuses. Or maybe properly platypi, I'm not really sure. Yoda was dead. "Tiffany," he began. But before he could finish his sentence, the voice of someone was heard. Darth Hallsballs recognized this voice and pulled out her sword. Darth Hallsballs turned around and saw a face of someone she had once loved and cherished. The face of a Lone Ranger, the vigilant, the amazing Obi-Wan Kokwani. Darth Hallsballs, suddenly filled with hate, yelled, "You killed my one true love in the world! The death of Scott was not my fault, Hala. Your anger killed him." "It's time for you to die, my old master," Darth Hallsballs said. With her lightning-fast reflexes, she stabbed Obi-Wan Kokwani through the chest. The once white walls were now painted with blood, guts, and organs. Tiffany lay in the bed in shock. Darth Hallsballs turned and stared down Tiffany and said, "Tiffany, I am your mother." Any goss? The credits!